All right. Good morning, class, and good to see you guys. So, shot this quick video to kind of go over the lab for today, Lab 13.3, to give some directions for you guys, and also to provide a model. On the one hand, a model of how to go through an introduction paragraph again, because it's been a little while since we did so. So I wanted to do it again so you guys could kind of see me modeling doing an introduction paragraph for a 5-paragraph essay, right? Whether that's a DBQ or an LEQ. But today's lab is going to have you go one step beyond writing an introduction paragraph. So what we're going to do today is we are going to write an introduction paragraph, but we're also going to transition that in to your first body paragraph. So we're going to talk about today, or this lab is going to have you do how to not only write an introduction paragraph, but to transition that into a body paragraph that supports your introduction paragraph. So it's going to be, on the one hand, a little bit of brush up, and on the other hand, a little bit of new material. So this is, you're kind of looking at my screen, a copy or an example of the Lab 13.3 that you're going to get. The driving question for today's lab is how to write a body paragraph that supports the introduction paragraph. So that's going to be our focus today. Is that's our new piece of knowledge, is the body paragraph, which is, we're going to have you write that for the first time. So okay, so let's just go ahead and hop right into it. So this table should look pretty similar to what we did before when we, I think we've written an introduction paragraph twice now. So this table should be pretty familiar for you to plan out your introduction paragraph. So I've got my prompt right up here, right, which is analyze the emergence of the Republican Party. Okay, so let's go ahead and do the first part then. So what is the prompt asking me to do? Well, the operative word here is analyze, right? So that's the critical thinking task that this prompt wants me to do. So analyze is a pretty broad prompt, right? Analyze is basically just a catch-all term for apply some sort of historical critical thinking to this theme or event, right? So analyze, which basically means either discuss cause and effect, change and continuity, right? Really, any of those historical thinking skills. It's just asking you pick, you choose which of these historical thinking skills you want to apply, right? So just analyze one of those things, cause and effect, change and continuity, whatever, of the emergence of the Republican Party, right? So I'm going to go just kind of one step further right here and say I'm going to talk cause and effect, right? Cause and effect and is usually a pretty safe one to go to. It's just a thinking skill that we use a lot. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to talk cause and effect of the emergence of the Republican Party. So, okay. So I've identified my purpose. So context, let's just go ahead and bullet point some of this. What's happening at the same time that the Republican Party emerges? Well, I know the Republican Party was formed in 1854, which is during the series of crises in the 1850s. I know that the immediate cause, usually cited by historians, is the Kansas-Nebraska Act. So I'm just gonna go ahead and bookend this and say that sectional tension really first got started with the Missouri Crisis of 1820, right? So I'm going to bookend it at the beginning of sectional crisis with that. I'm going to say the immediate cause was the Kansas-Nebraska Act. Kansas-Nebraska Act of 1854. And really by the start of the Civil War, I think we can say that the Republican Party is pretty well emerged and established. So I'm going to bookend the last little bit of context with the Civil War of 1861. Bam. Okay, so I've got my historical context here that I can expand when I write my introduction paragraph. All right, so 3 just general claims that I can make about the emergence of the Republican Party. Well, the analyze here has given me a pretty broad space to work with. So I'm just going to go ahead and, well, let's do a long-term cause, right? So let's say a broad cause. One of the really broad causes of the emergence of the Republican Party is sectional tension. So I will say sectional tension broadly between the North and South. Spelling. So sectional tension broadly between the North and the South. Now, one thing I added down here, which I would like you guys to start to get in the habit of, is providing evidence when you're planning your paragraph. So you don't want to get in and have your supporting claim and then realize that you can't think of any specific pieces of evidence for it, right? That's definitely not ideal. So get in the habit when you jot down your claims, when you're outlining your paragraph, jot down your evidence too. So my evidence for the sectional tension, broadly speaking, between the two of them, is well, I'm going to modify this just a little bit and say that sectional tension, rather than saying between the North and the South, I'm going to say sectional tension had split parties, split the major parties. Okay. So I'm already modifying as I go, and that's perfect. So sectional tension had split the major parties. My evidence is going to be the 1860 election, where we had the 4 different candidates, the 2 northern candidates and the 2 southern candidates. So that's going to be my specific evidence. My second claim, claim B, I'm going to go more to the immediate effect. So the immediate cause of the formation of the Republican Party was, of course, the Kansas-Nebraska Act. And for my evidence, I'm actually going to use the first Republican meeting held in Ripon, Wisconsin in 1854. Okay. And so my last claim, and of course, you don't need a third claim here. If you have time, more claims are always better. So I'm just going to put this down. So I've done 2 causes. I'm actually going to do an effect here. So an effect is that political parties were briefly sectional, or maybe I'll say briefly united through sectionalism rather than, what should we say, traditional party affiliation, right? So whatever you traditionally voted for, sectionalism is going to trump, whether you were traditionally a Democrat or a Whig or a Federalist or whatever. And so my evidence is going to be, let's see, what can we put here? Evidence could be, well, how about we do this? Perception. Again, we can maybe do the 1860 election, but here we can cite how the perception of the results led to secession of South Carolina. Should probably spell South correctly. South Carolina in 1860. Bam. Okay. So yeah, so we've got our context, we've got our claim and the piece of evidence to support each claim. So now let's pull all this together in a thesis. So I'm going to make the claim that the Republican Party merged in the 1850s as a result of increasing sectional tension between the North and South over the issue of slavery. Okay. So good, yeah. So I'm essentially making a causal claim that the Republican emerged as a result of increasing sectional tension, right? So I'm analyzing, I'm discussing cause and effect. I've got my claims and my supporting evidence. Bam. So this is my introduction paragraph. All right. So now when we go to write our introduction paragraph, which again, this is still all review from the previous video. So let's go ahead and whatever reason, it's not allowing me to tab, but that's okay. All right. So starting off with the context. Sectional, let's get rid of this. Okay. So sectional, geez, come on. Sectional tension was a major force in the United States in the latter half of the antebellum period, right? So here I've just outlined kind of what roughly period I'm talking about, and then kind of what the major trend was here. So the antebellum period, and if you want to be good, you can always say from roughly 1820 to 1860, right? So if you want to bookend it with solid dates, that's always better. So, okay, so the Missouri crisis is often cited as the first major episode of sectional tension, right? This was a turning point due to the fact that the line drawn at the 36, oh, in here, okay, 36. Get it? I didn't get it. It's, well, okay, how about we just do this? 6-degree parallel. Actually drew a line between the north and the south, right? Okay. So yeah, so I bookended it with the beginning, time to move in. So this period also included events such as the Kansas-Nebraska Act, in which Stephen Douglas bent over backwards to craft a plan for the Transcontinental Railroad in a way that would accommodate tension over slavery. Okay, and then finally, although to be more specific, this time period, although maybe we want to be more, although sectional, what we say this, tension between the North and the South did not end with the Civil War in 1860. That event can certainly be seen as the climax of this particular series of what we say, the climax of the antebellum. There we go. That's the climax of antebellum. Sectional. Okay, so that's my context, right? So I've contextualized the entire essay that I'm about to write. So, all right, in this essay, so it's time to give my supporting claims. In this essay, I will discuss one, how sectional tension split the major parties of the day, Democrat and Whig. 2, I will discuss the Kansas-Nebraska Act gave the impetus to anti-slavery advocates to organize. And 3, I will discuss, and 3, how the Republican Party the emergence of the Republican Party briefly the emergence of the Republican Party led to a period in which, there we go, political parties were briefly united through sectionalism rather than traditional party affiliation. Perfect. Okay, so good. So I've just outlined my claim A, my claim B, and my claim C. Now notice I haven't cited the evidence in any of my claims. You don't need to cite your specific evidence. You don't need to cite that in your introduction paragraph. So now it's time for the big shebang, right? The thesis statement. I will conclude that the Republican Party emerged in the 1850s as a result of increasing sectional tension between the North and the South over the issue of slavery. Perfect. Okay, so that's my introduction paragraph, right? I have provided context. I have outlined my claim A, my claim B, my claim C, and I have stated what I'm going to argue as my thesis. So, okay. So the next thing that you need to do in a 5-paragraph essay is you need to transition into your first paragraph, right? So now, of course, your claim A, this is going to wind up becoming your first body paragraph. Your claim B becomes your second body paragraph, and your claim C becomes your third one if you have time for that, right? So your body paragraphs, this is actually really simple. If you, the pattern that we've been practicing all year long with your SAQs, where you have your claim, your example, and then your explanation, that is the exact same pattern that you follow in your body paragraphs, right? So your body paragraph will always start out with a claim. It will always use evidence that will be an example of that claim. And it will always have a bit that explains how that evidence supports your subclaim, right? So your very first sentence in your first body paragraph will always be the subclaim that you already identified up top. So, and the nice thing is you don't even really need to transition in here. So I would say sectional tension during the 1850s, sectional tension had split the major political parties. All right, so that's my subclaim. First sentence right there, and it comes really easily once you planned out that first paragraph. So it's up to me now to do the second part, which is to cite a specific historical example. So during the 1850s, sectional tension had split the major political parties. An example of this, and there's your transition phrase right there, an example of this that lets the reader of your essay know that you're using or providing evidence. An example of this is the 1860 election. All right, so I've cited my example. Now I have to relate back to that subpoint. So the 1860 election featured four viable candidates for the presidency, right? Abraham, well, maybe let's do this. There were two main candidates from the North. Abraham Lincoln was the Republican candidate representing the anti-slavery Northerners. Stephen Douglas was the Democratic, and I'll say the Northern Democratic candidate representing Northerners who favored popular sovereignty. Spell that right? There we go. Google's got my back. Okay. The two main candidates from the South were, oh my gosh, I have to push my memory here. John Breckinridge. Now, the funny part, and I'll just tell you this right here because I'm not perfect by any stretch. I'm actually not 100% sure that the dude's first name is John Breckinridge, but if you get pretty close and you say Breckinridge, they will usually give you credit for that, right? So the APUSH graders are not picky enough to nail you if you get somebody's first name wrong, right? So just go for it and try and cite the people, even if you can't remember exactly who they are. So we're John Breckinridge, who was the candidate of the Southern Democrats, and John Bell, who was the candidate of the Union. Yes, the Union Party. The election of 1860 did not feature the party landscape of the two-party system with Whigs and Democrats. Those two parties had been torn apart by tensions regarding the expansion of slavery into the territories. Okay, perfect. Now, I've related this back to my my subclaim, right? If I want to be really good about it, I can also add a little something at the end of this that demonstrates how that claim then goes back to my thesis statement. So if you want to be really good and you have some time and you really want to knock a paragraph out of the park, you can kind of come back to it and say what should we say? The death of the, or sorry, maybe we should say this, the splintering of the parties splintering of the second two-party system created a void which the Republican Party could emerge. Okay, so there I've not only tied my evidence back to my subclaim right here, I've also even tied it back to the thesis. So that's all you have to do for a body paragraph, ladies and gents, right? It's that claim, example, explanation pattern that you do for your SAQs. Now, typically, if you do this well, one piece of evidence and explanation pair is usually enough for a body paragraph. If you have time, and if this is easily accessible, the more pieces of evidence always makes a claim stronger, right? So if you have your subclaim right here, if you can think of two pieces of evidence and you can get through both presenting the evidence and explaining them. So if you can do like claim, evidence, explanation, evidence, explanation in your A paragraph, if you can offer those together, that's a stronger paragraph. But one piece of evidence explanation is usually strong enough. And remember, you have a limited time to write this essay. So I would suggest just sticking with that. Unless you have some time and you can come back and fix your paragraph in some way, right? So, okay, yeah, so that's how to write a body paragraph that supports your thesis paragraph, right? So as you can see, and I said this before, the planning of the introduction paragraph is paramount. If you plan and lay out an introduction paragraph and do it well, the rest of your essay is easy sauce, right? It just flows from the plan that you've outlined up here. So once you've outlined up here, you've got your context, your thesis statement, your claims. All you have to do is then just fill in the gaps as you go on down. And of course, you can repeat this ad nauseum for paragraph B and paragraph C, right? So once you plan this out, write your introduction paragraph, write your body paragraph. All you need to do then is just do the same process for paragraph B, paragraph C. Repeat your thesis for the conclusion, and bam, you got yourself a 5-paragraph essay. Easy peasy, ladies and gents. So that's your lab, guys. Watch this video, go back to it, plan your paragraph, write your introduction paragraph and your body paragraph A, and that's all you need to do for this lab. Ladies and gents, good luck, best of luck. Email me if you have questions, and I will see you guys later.